Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You guys have been digging into some really interesting stuff about Germany, especially when it comes to air quality. And wow, some pretty fascinating findings coming out of that research, right?
Yeah, definitely.
We've got some excerpts here from a recent article that's really caught our attention. Germany actually met all the European Union air quality standards, like for the first time ever.
Pretty big.
It's a big deal. So what we want to do in this deep dive is really unpack what that means, how they got there, and maybe some questions that it raises, about kind of what's next.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's just jump right in. Germany hit the mark, right?
Yeah.
Like first time ever, 2024. They met all the EU's air quality limits. That's huge.
Yeah, it is. And especially, I think, worth noting, this is the first time they've hit those standards since they, became like officially binding back in 2010.
2010, wow, that's a long time. So this was not an overnight success story.
Not at all, no.
But what's really interesting to me is that this victory, this win, it really seems to be centered around one particular pollutant, nitrogen dioxide, NO2. So what's the deal with NO2? Why is this the one everyone's so focused on?
Well, I mean, NO2 is, I guess you could say, kind of a poster child for air pollution. It's one of the big ones, and it comes from, mainly burning fossil fuels.
Okay, so cars, power plants, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So, anything that's burning oil, gas, coal. And the reason why it's such a big deal is it's not just bad for the planet. It's bad for us, like for our health directly.
Right. Like breathing it in, that can't be good.
It's not good at all. It can lead to, big respiratory problems. So things like, if you have asthma, it can really aggravate that.
Oh, wow.
And even, there's evidence that it increases the risk of heart problems.
So it's really hitting us on multiple fronts.
Yeah, definitely.
So lowering those NO2 levels, it's not just like a feel-good environmental thing. It's actually about protecting people.
Absolutely.
But there was something else that I found interesting in the article. Some cities, they like barely made it.
Yeah.
What's the story there?
Essen and Munich were kind of the two that were right on the edge. So Essen actually hit the NO2 limit exactly, which is 40 micrograms per cubic meter of air. And Munich was just below that at 39.
So literally just squeaking by.
Pretty much, yeah.
So it shows, even within a country that meets this, overall target, you can still have these areas, these kind of hotspots where it's like, okay, there's still work to do.
Yeah, definitely.
But, obviously a lot of effort had to go into getting Germany to this point, right? Like, how do they pull it off?
Yeah, well, it really took a lot of, I guess, strategic effort and some, kind of technological advances. One of the big things they did was really invest in exhaust gas after treatment systems for vehicles.
So like cleaning up the fumes before they even get out?
Exactly, yeah. So like almost, scrubbing the exhaust. Yeah. And then another big thing was electrifying a lot of their bus fleets, especially in cities, getting rid of those diesel buses.
Okay.
Which are huge contributors to NO2.
So it sounds like a combination of like cleaner vehicles and smarter infrastructure.
Yeah, for sure.
But I remember seeing something about speed limits too, right?
That's right. In some places, they actually, changed, implemented or adjusted speed limits, particularly on those like really busy roadways, because slower speeds can actually mean less emissions.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just about the cars themselves, but also like how they're moving.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about optimizing everything.
It's like a whole system.
Absolutely.
But, we've been talking a lot about the celebration, right? Like Germany meeting these standards. But I did notice in the research there are some folks who are raising concerns, in particularly this group, the German Environmental Aid, the DUH.
Yeah, they're a pretty prominent, environmental advocacy group in Germany. And basically, their argument is that, yeah, okay, meeting the EU standards is progress, but the standards themselves are actually kind of outdated.
Oh, interesting.
Like they were set, over 20 years ago?
Wow.
And they point out that, in the past 20 years, we've learned a lot more about how air pollution affects us, what the long-term consequences can be.
So what we thought was safe back then, maybe it's not so safe now.
Exactly.
And I know they're, really pointing to these recommendations from the World Health Organization, the WHO.
Yeah.
What exactly is the WHO saying?
Well, the WHO is saying, those EU standards, they're okay, but we actually recommend, guidelines that are much stricter.
So even lower level.
Even lower levels, yeah. Because, again, we're learning more and more about how even small amounts can have an impact over time.
So it's almost like Germany's got this, like, success story, but with a little asterisk next to it,
Yeah.
It's making me think, is this a moment to celebrate, or is it more of a sign that the goalposts need to move? What do you think?
It's tough, right? Because on one hand, it's a huge accomplishment for Germany. Like, they put in the work, they made these changes, they hit the targets.
Right.
But the DUH does have a point.
Yeah.
If the science is saying, look, we need to aim for even lower levels, to truly protect people's health, then yeah, maybe the goalposts do need to move.
So should Germany, should any country really, settle for, just good enough? Or should they be pushing for, like, the best possible outcome?
That's a great question. And I think, it's something for all of us to think about, not just the policymakers, but all of us, as individuals, as citizens.
Right.
What air quality are we willing to accept? What are we willing to fight for?
That's such a powerful thought. And I think, it brings us back to the whole point of this deep dive. Germany's journey, it's really inspiring, It shows us that cleaner air is achievable. But it also highlights that it's not a one-and-done thing, right? Like, we can't just say, oh, we hit the target, we're done.
Yeah, it's a constant, it's a journey, really.
It's ongoing.
Absolutely.
And we have to keep asking ourselves, what's next? How can we make sure everyone can breathe easy, not just today, but tomorrow, next year, for years to come? So that's something I'm going to be thinking about, and I hope you guys will too.
Definitely.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
See that?